Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's edition of RE400, where I take old stories I've narrated and update into modern audio standards. This particular story is called A Princess with Billowy Pants, written by _______. Princess Beetlesheen was unfortunately named, but the royal naming tradition had to be upheld. An unfortunate appearance ensured that she was considered, at best, a mockery of nobility by her peers. Her comically long ears akin to twin blades of grass that bowed under their own mass towards her shoulders, her height putting her a head shorter than the shortest of her peers, and a heart-shaped face with dimples of all things. She was the complete opposite of the noble ideal, a regal diamond-shaped face with sharp lines, tall and angular in physique, and lozenge ears no larger than a person's palm. As a final ancestral gift, her natural skin tone was a reddish shade of burnt umber. That particular coloration was more associated with peasant farmers who had been tanned and burned by the sun for decades. Whether it was from respect for the system and knowing her standing as lesser nobility or an innate calmness, Princess Beetlesheen took her open mockery with warm, dimpled smile and self-deprecating humor. Such was her good nature and stoicism that her family's peasants began to hold her in fondness, using her example as an ideal for their own hardships. Their fondness grew as Beetlesheen began to come of age, which meant taking control of various family holdings and responsibilities. Her kindness and humor was gifted to all, not just her betters. Despite her family's limited holdings, their yields began to contest several families of higher station. The subtle shift to the balance of power was corrected by the other families, and new, vicious rumors spread. The eve of the Noble's Test was quickly approaching for Beetlesheen's generation, though it was a tradition from campaigning seasons millennia ago, wherein young nobles would lead their first campaign. It has slowly become a combination of feasts and an opportunity for noble families to show off their wealth and power. All of the noblemen would venture into the wilderness to return with a household guard befitting their position. Most of these household guards consisted of lesser nobles and children of affluent merchants and artisans, whose status as a member of the honor guard was highly sought after. Unless you were a lesser noble from a more impoverished family, then your options were limited. Rightfully so far as the nobility was concerned. Lesser nobles would leave up to 2 weeks earlier, foregoing the feast itself, to recruit as best as they could from peers and even workmen. Some would even dress up peasants to fit the role, usually going over the top with uniforms to take a chance at garnering favor by comedy. Weird little Beetlesheen left a full month early. Such an unusual departure prompted more ridicule and mockery. Maybe the rumors were true. She did inspire her peasants through sexual favors and gratification. She'd have to be on her back a long while to gather a household guard, even one of just peasants. Her immediate family smiled and laughed along, having given up Beetlesheen as an unfortunate casualty of noble politicking. As the recruitment phase of the Noble's Test was coming to a close, the various young nobles began returning with their household guard. As expected, the nobles from the richest families arrived first and had the most household guards. Some exceeded the standard count of 1,000 guardsmen by 200 or 300, fielding not only musket and rifle infantry, but cavalry and lancers. On the day of the final feast, Princess Beetlesheen finally returned. She entered the parade grounds on horseback at her head of only 100 infantry. The count was truly pathetic, but drew everyone's eye. The 100 infantrymen wore Beetlesheen's family colors, but their outfits were bizarre. Billowy, light trousers of butterscotch orange fluttered in the wind as they walked. A small jacket of periwinkle that barely reached their waists was left open, and a grey-blue waistcoat. Atop their heads sat what looked like floppy, far too light winter cap of the same butterscotch orange. But their ostentatious outfits weren't what kept everyone staring slack-jawed. It was that every one of the 100 infantry were humans in an elven household guard. They were violent barbarians whose roughness was good enough to establish multiple kingdoms and nation-states, but could never match those of elven fame. An arrogance that persisted despite the empire adopting human tactics, strategies, and industrialization. Such was the shock of the nobility and their newfound guards that they just watched as Beetlesheen's infantry broke into groups of 25 and assumed positions at the parade grounds. As Beetlesheen approached the gathered nobles, someone cracked a joke about her soldiers. They might be human, but they still couldn't hold formation. How befitting of someone like her. She just smiled, even offered a giggle. She hopped down, quite literally, from her horse, dressed in a similar outfit to her company. She climbed the podium, offering a proper curtsy. "They're quite irregular, aren't they?" she grinned. "They're ready, don't like holding line, and appreciate their elbow room." She turned to regard the regiments at parade. "They do stand out, even if they're so few." She turned and produced a document from her jacket. "I'd like each of you to sign your consent. I'm in charge now." The laughter was riotous, complete with several nobles falling over. "I mean it," she persisted. "I have a mixed regiment at my command. This is one company. The rest have, at my order, moved in and secured your factories and other holdings." There was a moment of silence, followed by indignant protests. Some mentioned that there was a regular army, an army which dwarfed her minuscule regiment. "You have an army of unwilling conscripted peasants that hate you. They love me, and they treat me with more respect and reverence than you ever have. Please make your mark." That sparkled even more protest and indignation. "There's a combined overstrength army corps of our household guards here. How do you expect to win?" barked one of the young nobles. Beetlesheen turned to regard him with a dimpled smile. "You brought toy soldiers to a parade in pretty uniforms. I brought an army that thinks I'm cute as a button, and that I have splendid ideas about equality and representation," she laughed. It was at that point a disturbing realization began to dawn on the nobles and their guards. Those humans had positioned themselves to surround the larger elven force, and those humans had entered with fixed bayonets. End of story. Story number 2. Humans are to be feared, written by AridSandstorm. "Humans are to be feared," went the joke, mocking repetitions made by both human and alien mouths of the statement made by the leader of pro-human organization shortly after humanity's inclusion into the galactic civilization. Said organization was soon dismantled by Terran and galactic police forces after a trio of terror attacks against alien civilian centers. Its name and likeness of its leader forgotten soon after. The mocking repetitions of the phrase ceased after said attacks, however. "Humans are to be feared," went the rumor. Whispered warnings spoken in seedy bars or pirate hives, accompanied by stories of trying to accost seemingly defenseless Terran freighter caravans, only to be sent limping away a couple of tons lighter, or after having witnessed doomed Terran freighters send their vessels careening into their attackers on suicidal ramming missions, just to allow their fellows to escape, or even of how the freighter personnel had military-grade weapons and armors and fought like trained, if rookie, soldiers. The most laughed-off stories consisted of a few times when unarmed Terrans fought like deranged beasts, groups of which reportedly even taking down a hulking masses of a Jalov. Pirate Jalov losses were attributed to ship or small arms combat. "Humans are to be feared," breathed the Zotan Planetary Regional Administrator. Fires raged in front of him as death filled the streets. Everywhere his four eyes could see, he saw the once docile, obedient slaves of his industrial region fighting tooth and nail against his security forces. Security forces that had been small to begin with when looked at the slave-to-officer ratio, but had ruled the mass of slaves through equal applications of fear and forced reliance. All that's changed when a new shipment of slaves had come in. At the time, he had shrugged off the introduction of Terran slaves to his region. He had blamed the leader of his security forces when the first signs of rebellion had come up. Now, that experienced officer lay in a fresh grave, having been sentenced to a firing squad not a day prior for failing to stop the slaves from subjugating one of the weapons plants. The Zotan administrator regretted thinking so little of the Terran slaves as he was shuffled into his evac shuttle by his personal guards. "Humans are to be feared," was a harsh truth spoken in hushed voices on every alien planet. Projected on the vidscreens of these countless worlds was the sight of a burning planet, a fleet of countless Terran ships simultaneously blockading and bombarding the planet. It was stated that the inhabitants of the planet that Grufkin had laid waste to a blossoming Terran colony on the border of Grufkin and Terran space. Grufkin reasoning being that Terran colony was an affront to one of their gods. Terran response was quick, and within 4 years, 2 Grufkin planets were reduced to ash with half a dozen more conquered through conventional means. The galaxy was now watching the third planet become another lifeless husk. Many remember seeing news feeds from some of the ground fighting reported via drones or organic reporters. Videos of Terran soldiers walking off the transports behind the lines with missing arms and entering medical tents on their own power. They remember seeing the drone footage of Terrans using flamethrowers to clear out fortifications that were once seen as impenetrable. They remember hearing of how the Terran Navy once used a gargantuan, relatively flat and square-shaped repair platform as a shield when they attacked Gifkin orbital fortress of Budokan 8, sacrificing the platform in order to get in range to disable the long-range weapons on the fortresses. They remember seeing the Terran friends, seeing as friendly, peace-loving people, leave for Terran space with a deep hatred burning in their eyes, even as they were smiling and saying goodbye. They will remember seeing that same friend return, some with cybernetic limbs or heavy scarring, and return to their daily peaceful lives as if nothing happened. They will see them saddened when they treat them with fear at work or in public. We do not need to be feared when the memoirs of Major Ryan Fredericks of the Terran Marines. We simply want to be left the hell alone. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.